Settle in now. Close your eyes and let the day's worries drift away like mist over a quiet meadow. Imagine, if you will, a time long, long ago, a time when England was a different world, a tapestry woven with earth and wood, and the slow turning of the seasons. We're going back to the year of our Lord 1200, a time when the rhythm of life was dictated by the sun and the soil and the distant echo of church bells. Forget the grand castles and the clanking armor for a moment, and let us instead journey to a small village nestled beside a winding river, where life unfolded at a pace that would seem impossibly slow to us today. The air, as the first hint of dawn begins to blush the eastern sky, carries a damp, earthy scent, a mixture of decaying leaves in the autumn past, and the freshly turned soil that promises a new beginning. It's a smell that clings to everything, to the rough wool of your tunic, to your callous hands, and to the very air you breathe. From the thatched roofs of the simple cottages, a thin plume of wood smoke begins to curl upwards, carrying with the faintest aroma of burning peat and damp wood. These are the first stirrings of the day, a gentle awakening that promises no sudden jolts, no alarms. In one of these humble dwellings, a small, sturdy cottage built from wattle and daub, with a roof of thick thatch that smells faintly of dried grass and, in the warmer months, of nesting birds, a figure begins to stir. This is Agnes, a woman whose life, like so many others, is inextricably bound to the land. The floor beneath her is packed earth, cool and solid to the touch, and when she shifts on her straw-filled mattress, a faint rustling sound rises, mingling with the soft, regular breathing of her husband, Thomas. Beside her, the room is small, barely more than a single space, with a hearth at its center, and the dim light filtering through the single, small window, glazed with stretched animal skin, casts long, wavering shadows. Agnes pushes herself up, her muscles protesting just a little, a familiar ache that comes with years of labor. The straw mattress, though simple, offers a welcome softness after a night of quiet rest. She reaches for her rough spun wool tunic, its texture coarse against her skin, and pulls it over her head. It's a garment designed for durability, for warmth, and for the demands of constant work, and it smells faintly of smoke and the day's labor. Her bare feet find the cool, packed earth of the floor, and she moves towards the hearth, her movements unhurried, practiced. The fire, banked from the night before, needs only a gentle coaxing. Agnes kneels, her knees finding a comfortable spot on the earth, and blows softly on the glowing embers. A small spark catches, then another, and soon a tiny flame flickers to life, casting a warm, orange glow that begins to chase away the shadows. The air, previously cool and carrying the dampness of the night, begins to soften, to embrace the growing warmth. A small pot made of rough, dark pottery is already hanging over the hearth, and Agnes adds a handful of dried herbs and a pinch of salt, preparing the morning's meager but nourishing meal. The smell of brewing pottage begins to fill the small cottage, a savory aroma of root vegetables, perhaps a bit of onion, and whatever grains were available. It's a scent that speaks of sustenance, of the simple necessities that fuel a life of hard work. Thomas stirs beside her, his breathing deepening, and Agnes glances over, a soft expression on her face. Their lives are not filled with grand adventures, but with a quiet companionship of shared labor and shared existence, a bond forged in the crucible of daily survival. Outside, the village is slowly coming to life. The crow of a rooster, clear and insistent, cuts through the morning air and is answered by another and then another. The lowing of cattle from a nearby byre, a gentle, rhythmic sound, joins the growing chorus of the awakening day. The air, though still cool, carries a promise of the sun's eventual warmth, a warmth that will be crucial for the drying of clothes, the growth of crops, and the general well-being of the community. Agnes moves to the small window, pushing aside the rough linen cloth that serves as a curtain. The village unfolds before her, a cluster of thatched roofs, smoke rising from many hearths, and the dark outlines of simple wooden fences. Beyond the village, the fields stretch out, a patchwork of browns and greens, marked by the furrows of plows and the faint, early morning mist. The river, a silver ribbon in the dim light, winds its way through the landscape, its gentle murmur a constant, soothing presence. The sounds of the village are muted, unhurried. The rhythmic thud of an axe splitting wood, the distant bleating of sheep, the occasional bark of a dog. These are the sounds of community waking, of preparations being made for the day's tasks. There is no rush, no frantic energy, just a steady progression of life as it has been for generations. Agnes watches for a moment, her gaze taking in the familiar scene, a sense of belonging settling over her. This is her world, and she knows its every nuance. Thomas finally sits up, rubbing his eyes and stretching. He's a man of solid build, his hands broad and calloused from years of working the land. His tunic, like Agnes's, is of rough wool, worn and mended in places, a testament to its constant use. He nods at Agnes, a silent acknowledgement of the start of another day, and moves toward the hearth, his steps heavy but sure. He takes a wooden bowl from a shelf and ladles a generous portion of the pottage into it. The pottage is thick and warming, a hearty meal to fortify them for the day ahead. It's not a meal of great variety, but it's filling and nourishing, made from the bounty of their small garden and the common fields. The taste is earthy, wholesome, with the subtle sweetness of the root vegetables and the slight tang of the herbs. They eat in comfortable silence. The only sounds a gentle clinking of spoons against pottery and the soft crackle of the fire. This quiet shared meal is a ritual, a moment of peace before the demands of the day begin. As they eat, the sun crests the horizon and its rays, still soft and golden, begin to stream to the window, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. The cottage, which was dim and shadowy moments before, is now bathed in a gentle, inviting light. The chill of the night begins to recede, replaced by a growing, palpable warmth that promises comfort. This is the beginning of a typical day, a day that will be shaped by the rhythm of the seasons and the demands of the land. Thomas finishes his pottage and sets his bowl aside. He looks towards the door, a silent signal that it is time to prepare for the work that awaits them. The fields are calling, and the tasks that must be done are many. There is no question of delay, no room for idleness. Life in 1200 England, for a peasant like Thomas, was a life of constant endeavor, a continuous cycle of sowing, tending, and harvesting, all under the watchful eye of the heavens and the demanding hand of soil. He stands, and the slight creak of the wooden stool is the only sound. He moves towards the door, his movements deliberate and unhurried. Agnes watches him go, a sense of quiet resignation and acceptance in her gaze. She knows the routine, the predictable pattern of their lives. She will follow soon, her own tasks awaiting her within the cottage and in the small garden plot behind their home. The day has begun in earnest, and the slow, steady march of time continues. Thomas reaches to the rough, wool tunic that hangs on a peg by the door. The wool is coarse against the skin, a familiar texture that has been part of his life since he was a boy. He pulls it over his head, the fabric feeling slightly damp with the morning air that has seeped into the cottage overnight. Beneath it, he wears a simple linen shift, softer but still woven by hand, its threads uneven and comforting. He can feel the faint scent of wood smoke clinging to the wool, a smell that is as much a part of his home as the earth beneath his feet. He steps outside, the cool morning air a gentle kiss on his face. The sky above is a pale, washed-out blue, the sun still low and casting long, elongated shadows across the muddy track that serves as their village path. The air is filled with the earthy aroma of damp soil, the faint, sweet scent of drying hay from the small stack near their cottage, and the distant musky smell of the livestock. A rooster crows somewhere in the village. Its call sharp and clear in the stillness, and a dog barks lazily in response. Thomas walks to the small lean-to shed attached to the side of their cottage, where his tools are kept. The wooden door groans softly on its hinges as he pushes it open, revealing the dim interior. The air inside is thick with the scent of dried mud and old straw. His plow, a heavy, sturdy implement of wood and iron, leans against the wall, its share dark and worn from years of service. Beside it, his spade, its handle smooth from countless grips, rests on the dirt floor. He picks up the spade, its weight familiar and reassuring in his hands. The cold iron of the blade seeps through his thin gloves, a stark reminder of the chill that still lingers in the air. He tests its balance, the familiar heft a testament to its purpose. This is not a tool of luxury, but a necessity, an extension of his own body that will help him coax sustenance from the reluctant earth. He can feel the rough grain of the wooden handle beneath his fingers, worn smooth by his own labor and that of his father before him. He walks toward the edge of their small garden plot, a patch of land about the size of a large room. enclosed by a low wattle fence. The soil here is darker, richer than that of the common fields, having been tended and manured for generations. He begins to work the earth, plunging the spade into the soil with a rhythmic motion. The sound is a soft thud, a satisfying give as the blade cuts through the damp earth, and the faint, earthy aroma of freshly turned soil rises to meet him. He turns over a clod of earth, its surface still cool and moist. He can see tiny earthworms wriggling in its depths, their movement slow and purposeful. The texture of the soil is crumbly and yielding, a welcome contrast to the more compacted earth of the common fields. He works methodically, each turn of the spade a deliberate action, breaking up the clods and preparing the soil for the seeds that will soon be sown. Agnes emerges from the cottage, carrying a small woven basket. The morning sun, now a little higher, catches a fine strand of her hair, turning them to spun gold. She walks towards the chicken coop, a small, thatched structure near the garden. The air around it is alive with the gentle clucking and rustling of the hens. The scent of straw and warm feathers is distinct, a comforting and familiar aroma. She opens the coop door and the hens, startled by the movement, begin to stir. Their soft, contented murmurs fill the air, a gentle chorus of anticipation. She reaches inside, her movements practiced and gentle, and begins to gather the warm, smooth eggs that lie nestled in the straw. The eggs are still warm from the hens, their shells cool and firm beneath her fingertips. She places each one carefully into her basket, their weight a small, precious addition. The eggs are a vital part of their diet, a source of protein and a welcome variation from the usual fare. They are often eaten scrambled or boiled, or added to the pottage to enrich its flavor. The thought of them, warm and nourishing, adds a small spark of quiet satisfaction to Agnes's morning routine. She can feel the slight tremor of the hens as she works amongst them, a gentle warmth radiating from their feathered bodies. She closes the coop door, leaving the hens to their scratchings and peckings. She then turns her attention to the small herb garden, a patch of vibrant green beside the cottage wall. The air here is fragrant with the sharp, invigorating scent of thyme and the milder, sweeter aroma of parsley. She carefully plucks a few sprigs of each, their leaves cool and slightly dewy from the morning mist. These herbs will add a welcome freshness to their meals, a touch of brightness to the simple flavors of their food. Thomas continues his work in the garden, the rhythm of his spade a steady beat against the quiet morning. He is preparing a small patch for planting peas, their tendrils reaching upwards, seeking the sun. The soil is turned and smooth, ready to receive the tiny, hard seeds. He can feel the ache in his shoulders and the strain in his back, but it is a familiar discomfort, a testament to his labor. He pauses for a moment, wiping his brow with the back of his hand. The sun is now warm on his skin, a welcome change in the morning chill. He looks out over the village, the thatched roofs of the cottages nestled amongst the green fields. Smoke is beginning to curl from a few more chimneys, signaling the start of other households' days. The world awakens slowly, deliberately, at its own pace. Agnes joins him at the garden edge, her basket filled with eggs and herbs. She hands him a few of the fresh herbs, their scent a pleasant contrast to the earthy smell of the soil. He takes them, nodding his thanks. They work side by side for a while, a silent understanding passing between them, a shared rhythm of purpose. The simple act of tending their small plot of land is a form of communion, a quiet connection to the cycle of life. The air is alive with a hum of insects now, the busy buzz of bees flitting from one flowering plant to the next. A butterfly, its wings a delicate mosaic of orange and black, dances lazily past. These small creatures are part of the tapestry of their world, their lives intertwined with the seasons and the land. Thomas can feel the warmth of the sun on his back, a gentle, persistent heat that seeps into his bones. He finishes preparing the pea patch and moves to another section of the garden, where he will plant some beans. The soil here is still damp from the recent rains, and he has to work carefully to avoid compacting it too much. He digs small holes with his fingers, the earth cool and yielding against his skin. He places the beans one by one into the holes, their smooth, dark shells a promise of future bounty. Agnes begins to prepare the fire for the day. She takes a few dry twigs and some straw from the sleeping area, and places them carefully in the hearth. The hearth is a simple stone construction, worn smooth by years of use. She strikes a flint and steel together, the sparks flying, and after a few attempts, a small flame catches on the straw. She gently blows on the embers, coaxing them to life, and soon a small, cheerful fire is crackling. The smell of wood smoke, faint at first, begins to fill the cottage, chasing away the lingering chill of the night. The flames dance and flicker, casting warm, dancing shadows on the rough-hewn walls. The heat from the fire is a welcome comfort, a tangible source of warmth and light. Agnes adds a few larger pieces of wood, and the fire grows stronger, its cheerful roar filling the small space. She then retrieves the pot that held their pottage from the previous evening, its earthenware surface still slightly cool to the touch. She rinses it in a wooden bucket of water, the water cold and bracing. She then places it over the fire, its base settling onto the hot stones of the hearth. The pot begins to warm, and the faint scent of lingering spices from the pottage rises in the air. Thomas finishes his work in the garden and walks back towards the cottage. The sun is now fully above the horizon, and its warmth is a steady presence. He can feel the dry earth crunching softly beneath his worn leather boots. The sounds of the village are growing louder now. The distant clang of a hammer, the bleating of sheep, the murmur of voices. He enters the cottage, and the warmth of the fire envelopes him. He sits on a low stool near the hearth, his movements stiff from the morning's labor. He watches Agnes as she tends to the fire, her silhouette framed by the dancing flames. The air is thick with the comforting aroma of wood smoke and the subtle scent of the herbs she gathered. Agnes takes the fresh eggs from her basket and cracks them gently into a small earthenware bowl. The yolks are a deep, rich orange, and the whites are clear and viscous. She whisks them lightly with a wooden spoon, the sound a soft, rhythmic swish. She then adds a handful of the fresh herbs. Their green leaves a vibrant contrast to the yellow of the eggs. She pours the egg mixture into the warming pot, which now sits over the fire. The heat from the flames begins to cook the eggs, and a gentle sizzling sound fills the air. The aroma of the cooking eggs, mingled with the herbs, is delicious and inviting. This simple meal, prepared with the bounty of their garden and the fresh eggs, will be a welcome midday repast. Thomas watches the eggs cook, a sense of quiet contentment settling over him. The morning's work is done, and for a short while, there is a lull before the tasks of the afternoon begin. He can feel the warmth of the fire seeping into his tired muscles, easing the stiffness and the ache. The simple rhythm of their lives, dictated by the sun and the seasons, unfolds with a comforting predictability. He stretches out his legs, feeling the worn fabric of his breeches. The wool is coarse but familiar, and he can feel the faint scent of sweat and earth clinging to it. He closes his eyes for a moment, the warmth of the fire and the gentle crackling of the flames lulling him into a state of peaceful repose. The world outside continues its slow awakening, but within the small cottage, a quiet moment of rest is savored. Agnes stirs the cooking eggs, ensuring they cook evenly. The small cottage, though simple, is a haven of warmth and security. The rough-hewn walls, the packed earth floor, the straw-filled sleeping pallets, all contribute to a sense of grounded reality, a connection to the earth that sustains them. The smell of the cooking food is a testament to their ability to provide for themselves, to draw sustenance from the land. The sun climbs higher in the sky, and its rays, now brighter, stream through the small, unglazed window. They illuminate the dancing dust motes in the air, creating a soft, ethereal glow within the cottage. The warmth of the fire and the sunlight mingle, creating a pleasant ambient heat. It is a simple comfort, but one that is deeply appreciated in a world where such luxuries are not taken for granted. Agnes ladles the cooked eggs and herbs into 2 wooden bowls. The eggs are soft and fluffy, their color a beautiful golden hue. The herbs are wilted but still fragrant, their flavor infused into the dish. She brings one bowl to Thomas, who accepts it with a quiet nod. The weight of the wooden bowl is substantial, and the steam rising from the food is fragrant and inviting. He takes a spoonful, the texture of the eggs soft and yielding on his tongue. The herbs provide a subtle, fresh counterpoint to the richness of the eggs. It is a simple meal, but one that is deeply satisfying, a testament to the nourishment that can be drawn from the earth and its creatures. He eats slowly, savoring each bite, the warmth of the food spreading through him. The sounds of the village are a distant hum now, a gentle backdrop to their quiet meal. The occasional bark of a dog, the distant bleating of a sheep, the murmur of voices, All are part of the familiar soundscape of their lives. There is no urgency, no rush, just a slow, steady rhythm of existence. The midday sun casts long shadows, and the day continues its unhurried progression. Thomas finishes his meal and sets his bowl aside. He can feel a gentle warmth spreading through his stomach, a feeling of pleasant fullness. The midday meal, though simple, is a vital part of their day, a moment of sustenance and quiet reflection before the labors of the afternoon. The sun is at its zenith, and the world basks in its golden light. He stands, and the slight creak of the wooden stool is the only sound. He moves towards the door, a silent signal that it is time to prepare for the work that awaits them. The fields are calling, and the tasks that must be done are many. There is no question of delay, no room for idleness. Life in 1200 England, for a peasant like Thomas, was a life of constant endeavor, a continuous cycle of sowing, tending, and harvesting, all under the watchful eye of the heavens and the demanding hand of the soil. Thomas steps out of the low doorway, and the full warmth of the midday sun washes over him, a comforting embrace after the dim coolness of their small dwelling. The air carries the earthy scent of damp soil, mingled with the fainter, sweeter aroma of ripening berries from the hedgerows and the ever-present, subtle tang of wood smoke from neighboring hearths. He blinks, his eyes adjusting to brightness, and surveys a familiar scene of their small croft. The hens peck industriously in the dust near the wattle and daub wall, their muted clucking a soft, familiar sound. He makes his way toward the small shed where their tools are kept. The ground beneath his worn leather shoes is firm and dry, baked by the sun, and you can feel the unevenness of it through the thin soles. He reaches for the hole leaning against a rough-hewn timber wall. Its wooden handle is smooth and slightly warm from the sun's heat, worn down by countless hours of his hands gripping it, and it fits perfectly into his calloused palm. He lifts it, and the satisfying, familiar weight settles into his grasp. Beside the hoe hangs a stout wooden rake, its tines worn and rounded from years of raking hay and clearing debris. He selects this as well, its weight a solid, dependable presence. The metal of the rake's head is cool against his fingers, a contrast to the sun-warmed wood. He carries them both, the tools a natural extension of his will, ready for the work that the afternoon demands. He walks past their small garden plot, where rows of sturdy cabbages and hardy beans are beginning to flourish. The leaves are a vibrant green, still glistening with the morning dew that has long since evaporated from the open fields. He runs a hand over a broad cabbage leaf, feeling its cool, slightly waxy surface, and notices a small caterpillar diligently making its way across its breadth. He gently nudges it toward the edge of the leaf, a small act of stewardship. The path leading to the common fields is well-trodden, a ribbon of packed earth winding between the scattered dwellings of the village. Other villagers are also beginning to emerge, their movements slow and deliberate in the heat of the day. There are no boisterous greetings, only quiet nods, perhaps a murmured Godspeed as they pass. The air is filled with the gentle murmur of their quiet industry. As he approaches the edge of the common land, the vast expanse of cultivated fields stretches out before him, a patchwork of greens and browns under the brilliant sky. The distant bleating of sheep and the lowing of cattle from the communal pasture add to the tranquil symphony of the countryside. The sun beats down, and he can feel its warmth on the back of his neck, a steady, insistent presence. He finds his assigned strip of land, a long, narrow rectangle of earth that is his to tend. It is planted with barley, the young shoots a delicate green, still not fully formed. He begins his work, the rhythmic scrape of the hoe turning over the soil at the base of plants, loosening it and clearing away any encroaching weeds. The earth crumbles easily under the tool, releasing its rich, dark scent. The work is familiar, ingrained in his very muscle memory. His back bends and straightens. His arms move with a practiced, steady rhythm. The sun is hot, and a fine sheen of sweat soon appears on his brow and trickles down his temples. He pauses occasionally to wipe his forehead with the back of his hand, the rough fabric of his tunic feeling slightly damp against the skin. He works methodically, moving slowly along the row. The barley plants are delicate, and he is careful not to disturb their fragile roots as he works the soil around them. Each weed pulled is a small victory, freeing the precious barley to draw nourishment from the earth without competition. The silence is broken only by the sounds of his labor and the natural sounds of the countryside. The weight of the hoe becomes a familiar burden, its constant presence a reminder of the work that needs doing. His muscles begin to ache, a dull, persistent throb that is not unpleasant, but simply a testament to the physical exertion. He drinks sparingly from the water skin he brought, the water cool and refreshing against his parched throat. He continues his weeding, his gaze sweeping over the rows, identifying every tiny intruder that threatens the growth of the grain. The sun climbs higher and the heat intensifies, but he keeps working, his focus unwavering. The task is a slow, deliberate one, and he knows that patience and persistence are the true keys to a good harvest. After a long while, he decides to switch tasks and picks up the rake. He uses it to gently gather the weeds he has loosened, piling them into neat heaps at the end of the row. The rake's tines glide through the soil, collecting the unwanted plants with satisfying ease. He works his way across the strip, each movement deliberate and unhurried. The raking is less strenuous than the hoeing, and it allows him to straighten his back for a few moments, stretching out the stiffness. He can feel the gentle breeze on his skin, a welcome respite from the direct sun. The air is filled with the scent of the disturbed earth and the faint, sweet perfume of the barley itself. He glances across the field, noticing the progress of his neighbors. They too are bent over their work, their movements a mirror of his own. There's a sense of shared purpose, a quiet understanding that binds them together in this common endeavor. The rhythm of their work creates a collective hum, a testament to the enduring spirit of the land and its people. The sun begins its slow descent toward the western horizon, casting longer, softer shadows across the fields. The intensity of the heat lessens, and a gentle coolness begins to creep into the air. He knows it is approaching the time to cease his labors for the day. He finishes raking the last of the weeds, leaving his strip of land tidy and ready for continued growth. He leans on the rake for a moment, his chest rising and falling with his steady breaths. The ache in his muscles is a familiar sensation, a comforting sign of a day's work well done. He looks at the barley, its green shoot standing tall and proud, and feels a quiet sense of satisfaction. The earth has been tended, and the promise of sustenance for the coming winter is a little stronger today. He gathers his tools, the weight of them now a familiar comfort. He walks back toward the village, his steps a little heavier now, but his mind at peace. The sounds of the day begin to soften, the distant bleating of sheep and the murmur of voices fading into the approaching twilight. The sky overhead is a vast canvas of fading blues and soft oranges. As he approaches his croft, he sees Elsbeth standing in the doorway, her silhouette framed against the dim interior. A faint smile touches her lips as she sees him returning. The day has been long and the work demanding, but they have met its challenges with quiet resilience. The promise of rest and the simple comfort of their shared life await him. He enters the dwelling, and the familiar scent of wood smoke and dried herbs greets him. The air is warmer inside, a gentle contrast to the cooling evening air outside. Elsbeth moves to greet him, her hand reaching out to touch his arm, a silent acknowledgement of their shared day. The weariness in his bones is deep but not burdensome. It is the honest fatigue of honest labor. He sets the hoe and rake down by the wall, their rough surfaces a familiar texture against the packed earth floor. He can feel the lingering warmth from the sun on his skin, a warmth that will soon fade into the coolness of the approaching night. The simple pleasures of home, of shared food and quiet company, are what sustain them through the long cycle of the year. He sinks onto the wooden stool by the hearth, the rough wood pressing against his weary legs. The embers in the hearth glow softly, casting a warm, flickering light on their faces. The day's labor is done, and the quiet peace of the evening settles over them like a soft blanket. Tomorrow will bring its own tasks, its own challenges, but for now, there is only this moment of quiet repose. Elsbeth brings him a bowl of cool, fresh water from the well, its taste clean and pure. He drinks it slowly, letting the coolness soothe his throat and refresh his spirit. The simple act of drinking is a moment of profound gratitude for the basic necessities that sustain their lives. He feels the day's exertions begin to melt away, replaced by a growing sense of calm. He watches Elsbeth as she moves about their small dwelling, her movements economical and graceful. She is preparing their evening meal, the scent of pottage beginning to fill the air. It is a simple dish, likely made with grains, some vegetables from their garden, and perhaps a small piece of salted pork if they are fortunate. The aroma is comforting and familiar, a promise of nourishment and warmth. The sounds from outside are now hushed, the village settling into a quiet slumber. The hoot of an owl in the distance and the rustling of leaves in the gentle night breeze are the only reminders of the world beyond their hearth. The darkness outside is deep and absolute, broken only by the faint shimmer of starlight through the small, unglazed window. He closes his eyes for a moment, feeling the gentle warmth of the fire on his face. The day's anxieties, the constant worry about weather and harvest, recede into the background. In this moment, there is only the present, the quiet comfort of their home, and the deep satisfaction of having worked the land. Elsbeth places a bowl of the pottage before him. The steam rises, carrying the savory scent of cooked vegetables and grains. The broth is thick and nourishing, and the vegetables are soft and yielding. He eats slowly, each spoonful a small act of contentment. The warmth of the food spreads through him, chasing away the last vestiges of the day's fatigue. He can feel the gentle weight of his own body settling into a state of profound relaxation. The callous skin on his hands, the ache in his muscles, the slow beating of his heart. All are familiar sensations that speak of a life lived in close harmony with the earth. There is no pretense, no artifice, only the raw reality of existence. He looks at Elsbeth, her face illuminated by the firelight, and sees the same quiet strength and resilience reflected in her eyes. They are a part of this land, and this land is a part of them. Their lives are woven into the fabric of the seasons, their days dictated by the rhythm of the sun and the demands of the soil. As he finishes his meal, a profound sense of peace descends upon him. The day's work has been done, and the night offers its restorative embrace. He knows that sleep will come easily, a deep and dreamless slumber that will prepare him for the labors of the morrow. The simplicity of their lives, though often hard, holds a profound beauty and a deep well of contentment. He rises from the stool, and the soft creak of the wood is barely audible. He moves towards their sleeping pallet, a simple bed of straw covered with rough wool blankets. The air is cool now, and the prospect of warmth and rest is deeply inviting. Elsbeth joins him, and together they settle down, the worn blankets providing a familiar comfort. The darkness is complete, and the sounds of the night are a gentle lullaby. The worries of the world seem distant and unimportant. Here, in the quiet embrace of their home, there is only the present moment, the steady rhythm of their breathing, and the promise of a new day. He drifts, slowly and peacefully, into the soft, welcoming arms of sleep. The last embers in the hearth glowed with a soft, pulsing orange, casting long, dancing shadows that softened the rough-hewn walls of their small dwelling. The day's heat had long since faded from the stone, and a gentle coolness now permeated the air, a cool that was not sharp or biting, but rather a soothing balm after the day's exertions. He could still smell the lingering scent of wood smoke, mingled with the fainter, earthy aroma of drying herbs and the comforting, slightly damp smell of the straw beneath them. These were the smells of his life, the constant, grounding perfumes of his home. Elsbeth stirred beside him, a soft sigh escaping her lips as she shifted her weight. The straw rustled gently, a familiar whisper that spoke of their humble bed. He could feel the warmth of her body close to his, a steady, reassuring presence in the deepening darkness. The rough wool of the blanket, worn smooth by countless nights of use, was a comforting weight against the skin, its familiar texture a testament to its enduring service. Outside, the sounds of the village were also quieting. The distant bleating of sheep settling in their pen, the occasional soft bark of a dog, and the murmur of the wind through the bare branches of the oak tree near their door were the only interruptions to profound silence. Even the children's boisterous shouts had long since faded, replaced by the hushed stillness that heralded the coming of true night. These were the sounds that marked the end of a day, a gentle procession into rest. He felt a deep, bone-deep weariness, not an unpleasant ache, but the satisfying fatigue that comes from honest labor. His hands, callous and ingrained with the soil, felt heavy and still. He flexed his fingers, feeling the familiar stiffness, and a quiet gratitude rose within him for the strength they still possessed. They had turned the earth, harvested the grain, and mended the fences, and now they were ready for their nightly repose. The darkness was a soft blanket, a comforting embrace that eased the tension from his shoulders and the ache from his back. He could feel his breathing deepen, becoming slower and more rhythmic, a natural cadence that matched the gentle pulse of the sleeping world around him. There was no need to count sheep, no anxious thoughts to chase away the sleep. His mind was as quiet and still as the night outside. He remembered the feel of the sun on his back earlier in the day, the rough texture of the wooden plow handles, the satisfying thud of the scythe as it cut through the tall grass. These were the tactile memories of his existence, simple sensations that grounded him in the present moment and the reality of his life. They were not grand events, but the cumulative experience of a life lived close to the land. The air in the cottage was still and cool, carrying the faintest hint of the evening's chill. He drew the wool blanket tighter, feeling its warmth seep into him. The straw beneath him offered a gentle cushioning, a natural softness that no crafted bed could replicate. It was the scent of the earth, the smell of their home, and it held a profound sense of peace. He thought of the day's meal, the hearty stew that had warmed him from the inside out, the soft, yielding texture of the cooked vegetables, the grainy comfort of the bread, the savory broth. These simple flavors were a source of deep satisfaction. They were the fruits of their labor, the sustenance that fueled their lives, and he savored the memory of that nourishment. Elsbeth's breathing was slow, and even beside him, a gentle counterpoint to his own. He could feel the subtle rise and fall of her chest, a quiet testament to her presence. They shared this space, this life, this quiet understanding that needed no words. Their connection was as deep and as natural as the roots of the ancient oak outside. The light from the dying embers continued to fade, painting the room in ever-deepening shades of gray and black. Soon, the last spark would wink out, leaving them in the complete darkness of the night. This darkness was not something to be feared, but rather a familiar companion. A time of rest and renewal, a gentle pause before the dawn. He felt a profound sense of belonging, a deep connection to the land that stretched out beyond their small cottage. He was a part of this soil, this sky, this ancient rhythm of life and death, growth and decay. His existence was simple, unadorned, and in its simplicity, he found profound and unwavering peace. His eyelids felt heavy, the weight of them a signal that sleep was drawing near. The day's labors had been long and often arduous, but they had been good labors that nourished and sustained. There was a quiet pride in that, a deep contentment that settled over him like the falling night. He could feel the gentle pull of sleep, a soft tide drawing him further into its depths. The sounds of the night seemed to recede, becoming a distant murmur, a gentle hum that cradled him. His thoughts, which had been a steady stream throughout the day, now began to eddy and slow, like a river reaching a calm, deep pool. The cold outside was a mere thought, a distant concept that held no power within the warmth of their small dwelling. The rough wool blanket was a fortress of comfort, and the straw a soft, yielding foundation. He was safe, he was warm, and he was deeply, profoundly tired. He could feel his muscles begin to relax, the tension draining away with each slow exhalation. The ache in his joints softened, becoming a dull throb that was more a reminder of his physicality than a discomfort. He surrendered to this release, allowing his body to sink deeper into the straw. Elsbeth's presence was a steady anchor, a warm point of reference in the enveloping darkness. He didn't need to see her to know she was there, to feel the quiet strength of their shared existence. Their lives were intertwined, a single thread woven into the vast tapestry of the village. The world outside the cottage seemed to shrink, becoming a vague, distant entity. His immediate reality was the feel of the blanket, the scent of the straw, the sound of their shared breathing. This was his world now, a world of simple, tangible sensations. His breathing grew even slower, deeper, each inhale and exhale a gentle wave washing over him. The rhythm was hypnotic, a natural lullaby that soothed his tired mind. The day's worries, if any had lingered, were now like wisps of smoke, dissolving into the quiet air. He felt a sense of profound contentment, a quiet joy in the simplicity of his life. There was no striving, no ambition beyond the next harvest, the next season. There was only the present moment, the comfort of his home, and the promise of rest. The last vestiges of awareness began to fade, like the dying embers in the hearth. The edges of his consciousness softened, blurring into a gentle haze. He was being drawn down into the deep dark and welcoming waters of sleep. He could feel the weight of his own body becoming heavier, sinking into the welcoming softness of the straw. The coolness of the air was now a pleasant sensation against his skin, a gentle reminder of the world outside, a world he would return to at the dawn. But for now, there was only this profound stillness, this enveloping peace. The soft rustle of straw beneath him was the last distinct sound he registered, a gentle whisper that accompanied him as he drifted. It was the sound of his home, the sound of his life, and it was a sound that brought him immense comfort. He was enveloped in the quiet embrace of the night, ready to surrender completely to its restorative power. And as the last flicker of conscious thought receded, he was no longer a peasant in the year 1200, no longer a man with worries or tasks. He was simply a body at rest, breathing softly in the dark, being held in the gentle, unwavering arms of sleep. A deep, dreamless sleep, the kind that only honest exhaustion and profound peace can bring. The darkness was not an absence, but a presence, thick and velvety, pressed against his eyelids. It held the warmth of the day's sun, absorbed by the humble walls of his wattle-end dog cottage, and a lingering scent of wood smoke from the dying embers in the hearth. He could feel the rough texture of the straw mattress beneath his thin woolen tunic, a familiar, comforting scratchiness that had been the foundation of his rest for as long as he could remember. Each breath he took was a slow, deliberate movement, expanding his chest and then releasing, a gentle tide pulling him further from the day's labors. The sounds of the night were muted, a hushed symphony of the world settling into slumber. Outside, the wind might sigh through the eaves, a soft murmur that was more a feeling than a sound. Perhaps a distant dog would bark, a lonely, infrequent cry that only emphasized the surrounding quiet. Inside, the rhythmic breathing of his wife beside him was a steady anchor, a low, continuous hum that resonated deep within him, a quiet assurance of shared existence. His muscles, weary from hours of stooping in the fields, planting seeds or pulling weeds, began to release their tension. The ache in his shoulders, the stiffness in his knees, all softened and dissolved, becoming less a burden and more a memory. He felt the weight of his own limbs, heavy and settled, pressing into the yielding straw. Each point of contact a confirmation of his grounding, his right to this moment of stillness. Sometimes, a fleeting image would flicker at the edge of his awareness. The golden sheen of ripe barley ready for harvest, or the stark, white purity of snow blanketing the frozen furrows. But these were not thoughts demanding attention, merely echoes of his life, gentle whispers from the waking world that held no power to disturb his descent. They were like shadows cast by a distant, unseen light, beautiful in their transience. The air in the cottage was cool, a welcome contrast to the warmth radiating from his body, and the faint heat, still held by the packed earth floor. It carried the subtle, earthy fragrance of the straw, mingled with the faint, sweetish tang of unwashed wool and the ever-present, comforting aroma of wood smoke. These were the perfumes of his world, the honest sense of survival and sustenance. He was aware of the faint pressure of the rough-spun wool of his tunic against his skin, the slight chill that prickled his exposed arms and neck. This awareness was not uncomfortable, but rather a gentle confirmation of his physical presence, a reassurance that he was truly here, truly resting. It was a world reduced to its most fundamental sensations, stripped of all artifice and complexity. The darkness deepened, becoming a tangible shroud, wrapping him in its comforting embrace. He felt a slow, steady beat of his heart, a deep, resonant thrum that seemed to sync with the quiet pulse of the earth outside. Each beat was a reminder of his own living presence, a gentle rhythm that guided him deeper into the realm of unconsciousness. He could feel the warmth of his wife's body beside him, a subtle heat that seeped through the thin blanket they shared. Her breathing, a soft, consistent sound, was a lullaby that spoke of shared struggles and shared peace. It was a sound of companionship, a quiet reassurance that he was not alone in the vast expanse of the night. The straw beneath him shifted slightly, a soft rustle that was the only audible sound within the immediate vicinity. It was the sound of his bed, the sound of his home, a familiar symphony of simple materials. It was a sound that spoke of the earth from which it came, and the earth to which he would eventually return. His mind, no longer occupied with practicalities of plowing or the anxieties of a sparse harvest, began to surrender its hold. The day's images and sounds receded, like a tide pulling away from the shore, leaving behind only the smooth, polished stones of memory. There was no effort in this release, only a natural yielding a gentle letting go. He felt a profound sense of peace settle over him, a quietude that permeated every fiber of his being. It was the peace of a day's hard work brought to a satisfying close, the peace of knowing that his family was safe and sheltered. It was a deep, uncomplicated peace of a life lived in accordance with the rhythms of nature. The boundaries of his awareness began to blur, the distinct edges of his self softening and dissolving. He was no longer a man with a name and a history, but a point of quiet consciousness, sinking into the vast, unfathomable ocean of sleep. There was no resistance, only a willing surrender to the restorative embrace of unconsciousness. The coolness of the night air on his face was a gentle caress, a soft kiss that whispered the world outside. But even this sensation began to fade, becoming less distinct, less real. He was being drawn deeper, further into the velvety blackness, where even the faintest of sensations could not penetrate. His breathing continued its slow, measured cadence. Each inhale and exhale a gentle wave carried him further from the shore wakefulness. The rhythm was hypnotic, a soothing mantra that lulled his weary senses into a state of profound repose. The world outside, with its demands and its hardships, ceased to exist. He felt a sense of utter lightness, as if the weight of his body were being lifted, carried away on the currents of sleep. Yet paradoxically, he also felt a profound sense of grounding, of being held by the very earth beneath him, a gentle, unwavering support. It was a state of perfect equilibrium, a balance between release and belonging. The last lingering thoughts, like fireflies at dusk, winked out one by one, leaving behind only the soft, pervasive darkness. He was adrift now, truly adrift in the calm, silent waters of the night. There was no fear, no apprehension, only a deep, abiding sense of trust in the process of rest. His body, a vessel of honest toil, lay still and heavy, a monument to the day's labor. Each weary sinew and bone found its perfect alignment, its natural resting place. The coolness of the night air no longer registered as a distinct sensation, but as an integral part of the all-encompassing quiet. The rustling of the straw, once a distinct sound, became a part of the deeper silence, a whisper from the heart of the earth. It was the sound of his bed, the sound of his life, and in this moment, it was the sound of absolute peace. He was enveloped, held, cherished by the gentle, unyielding darkness. He was simply a breath, a slow, deep exhalation into the quiet night, a consciousness dissolving into the vastness, a body at rest, surrendered to the profound, dreamless sleep that only the honest exhaustion of a life lived close to the soil can bring. The world grew distant, then vanished entirely, leaving only the deep, unbroken stillness, the infinite, welcoming embrace of sleep.